Hello everyone and welcome to the Tank Club. Today I'm going to be showing you my updated version of my Werewolf Tank build. This is going to be for a bit of fun. This isn't supposed to be a really serious build for all content, but it is going to work. It is going to be fun. You are going to have a good time. Mainly this is for dungeon content. It's going to perform pretty well in dungeons. It's going to offer us a good number of buffs for our group, and we're not really going to lose too much because we're a werewolf. So we'll get straight into it. So in terms of our class, you can be any class that you want to be. The only thing that you really need to look out for is your class passives. So some class passives are going to work really, really well. Others are not. So in this situation, I am on a Templar tank. And the reason why I'm on a Templar tank is the Restoring Spirit passive. So it reduces the health, magicka, stamina, and ultimate cost of abilities by 5%. You don't need to slot one of the Dawn's Wrath abilities to get that. So what you're looking for when you want to become a werewolf are passives from your class that don't require you to slot any class-based skills on your bar. So this one is a prime example. Sorcerer's also a great option. They have a thing similar to this. Anything that's got like a cost reduction is going to be really, really good for werewolf. But yeah, the main thing is looking through your passives. So for example, this one, casting a Dawn's Wrath ability. It's not going to work. You can't cast a Dawn's Wrath ability while you're a werewolf. And then Adric Spear again, things like this. Balance Warrior, increase your spell and weapon damage and physical resist. Like we're going to get the extra physical and spell resistance by being by using a Templar and having this particular passive. But then when you look at this, when you deal damage with an Adric Spear ability, not going to do anything. Spear Wall, not going to do anything. When activating an Adric Spear ability, it's going to give you minor protection. We're not going to get it. So take a look at your passives, see what things don't require anything to be slotted to game them. And then that's what is going to give you the good passives that you can carry over to werewolf form. In terms of race, similar kind of situation, so you can just choose whatever you want, but you do want to kind of go with something that's got some kind of stamina benefit or cost reduction benefit. So as a Red Guard. So the first passive here is not going to be that useful, reduce the cost of your weapon abilities by 8%. Obviously we're not going to be using any weapon abilities because we're going to be in werewolf form the whole time, so that's not really that useful. Conditioning increases your max stamina by 2,000. This is really good. So we're going to get the max stamina, and then Adrenaline Rush. When you deal damage, you restore 1,005 stamina. So really good stamina return from this. Over 12k stamina per minute. That's going to be really vital for Werewolf Tanking. Werewolf Tanking is very, very high intensity on your stamina resources. So this is really, really good to have. An Imperial would also be really good. Argonian would be really good. Anything that gives sustained benefits to stamina is going to be really good. So choose whatever you want, but try and choose something that is sustained based for your race. We take a look at our stats while in werewolf form. Here we go. We've got 23,100 max magicka, 40,000 max health, 33,000 max stamina, 1k mag recovery, 25k resistances. Really nice. On our advanced stats, block cost 1231, quite high, but we will manage because we're going to be heavy attacking quite frequently. We've got a 67% block mitigation, kind of low as well, but again, it's not going to cause us too much of a problem. For me, as a Red Guard, I've gone for 6 points into magicka, 48 into health, and 10 into stamina. And that's just what I prefer to try and get the stats I need. If we look at our food, we've got Bewitched Sugar Skulls because we want to increase all of our stats. Mundus Stone, we've got the Atronach because we're going to need to self-heal. And we want to use our self-heal as frequently as possible because it offers some good things as well. And then for our potions, your standard tri-stat potions are going to be fantastic for this build. So the stat sheet that I showed you before, that didn't include the resistance buff that you're going to get by using one of our gear sets. So I'm going to show you the gear now. So in terms of the gear, we have got two different setups. You've got to use two different setups. We've got an ad pull setup, we've got a boss setup. The reason we've got two different setups, you have no ability of pulling enemies in or chaining enemies in. So we are going to be using a set to help us with that, and then when we're in boss fights and we can't chain enemies in, we're going to use something else. So let's take a little look. For our first setup, this is a ad pull setup, and we're going to be using the Rushing Agony set. There's going to be two sets here that you need to get from the Dread Cellar. This is the first one, Rushing Agony. This is from the Dread Cellar, and that's where you're going to get this from. We're using an Infused Crusher Eye Staff. You don't need a backbar weapon because my intention here is to be a werewolf 100% of the time. If I'm not in werewolf form, I'm just going to use a regular tank build. So I don't have like a back bar weapon, but you can slot one if you want. You can do whatever you want, but I personally, I'm intending to be in werewolf form 100% of the time. If I was to set up the non-werewolf skill bars, they would be regular tank skill bars for this particular class. This intention for me is to be in werewolf form 100% of the time. So we've got Infused Crusher, Ice Staff, Rushing Agony. So the Rushing Agony set is going to give us stamina recovery, which isn't super useful, but you do want to kind of try and drop block frequently with a werewolf because you do want to gain stamina. It's very tricky to gain stamina back as a werewolf occasionally. We're going to add weapon and spell damage. The weapon damage is okay. We're going to get, from the weapon and spell damage, we are going to get increased healing a little bit and things like that. We're going to do a little bit more damage, so we are going to gain a little bit more healing and stuff. That's the main thing. Defensive penetration, not super important, but it's there anyway. Then the main thing is when you deal direct damage with a blink, charge, leap, teleport, or pull ability, pull enemies within 10 meters to you. After 2 seconds, you deal 4,721 physical damage to all enemies within 7 meters. This effect can occur once every 8 seconds and scales off the highest of your weapon and spell damage. The pull will not apply crowd control immunity to targets. So, with the werewolf, we're able to use this to pull enemies in, and then we can use a skill to fear the enemies to root them in place. So, a really nice option because we are going to be using a leap skill. And the leap skill we're using does cause a bleed onto individual enemies, so it classes as a direct damage ability, so it will pull enemies in very, very easily. So we are going to use a 5-piece of Rushing Agony for the add pull setup, and we're going to be using it on the weapon, and we're using it on the jewelry as well. So here you can see I've got 3 pieces of Robust, 1 Magicka Recovery, and 2 reduced stamina cost of abilities, 2 reduced feat cost. For our other pieces of gear, we've got a Dummy House Mask. This is to increase our max stats. You can use whatever you want for this one piece. You could use a Magma Incarnate for your Magicka and stamina recovery. You could use an actual monster set as well if you wanted to, but it's got to be something that you can proc. Things like Tremor Scale cannot proc while in werewolf form, so it is not worth using. Things like Earthgore will proc. Things like Engine Guardian will proc. Those kind of gear sets could be worth using, but you have to be able to proc them, or else it's not worth using them. So I have gone for the 1-piece Dummy House to get the extra max stamina and max magicka. And then on the shoulder piece, I've got the Spalder of Ruin. So activating crouch activates and deactivates a 12-meter Aura of Pride. Up to 6 allies in the aura gain 260 weapon and spell damage. It does reduce your health, magicka, and stamina recovery by 70 for every ally that's benefiting from the aura. So it is going to nerf your sustain quite heavily. But luckily for us, it's not going to make too much difference. We're going to be heavy attacking quite a lot. We don't have to do an awful amount of skill casting, so it should be okay. Now, you do have to activate this before you go into werewolf form. If you can't crouch inside werewolf form, so you have to activate this before you turn into a werewolf, and then the buff will stay with you in werewolf form. So just remember that. It's really important. If you don't activate it before you go into werewolf form, then you won't be able to activate it. Our final gear set is the Tormentor set. Obviously, as a werewolf, they don't have a taunt, so we have to use a gear set that will taunt. And for this one, that is what's going to happen. So on the body pieces, this is a heavy set. This drops in Banished Cells, and we're going to use that. It comes with a 2-piece items of max health. We get 2 lines of healing taken, so 8% healing taken in total. And then the 5-piece, when you deal direct damage with a charge, leap, teleport, or pull ability, you gain 3,642 physical and spell resistance and taunt the enemy to attack you for 15 seconds. So this is your taunt. So what happens is you do 1 skill to leap into a stack of enemies, and it will taunt them and pull them in. It's really, really good. So you're going to jump into the group with a leap skill as a werewolf. They're going to get taunted and pulled at the same time. So this is really strong. This is really good for this type of gameplay. If you are going to play, if you are trying to have a bit of fun as a werewolf tank, this is going to be really helpful for add pulls. If we have a look now for the second setup, which is a boss setup, everything else is the same. The only thing we've changed is we've gone with the Crimson Oath set, and now we've switched the gear traits to Triune. So for bosses, we were just on Robust, because when we're getting hit by lots and lots of enemies, we need higher max stamina. When we switch to Crimson Oath, we don't need as much stamina. We're going to try and average out our stats a little bit more. So we've gone Triune. The same again with the Magicka Recovery and to reduce feat cost. All of our gear is sturdy and tri-stat as well, because we want to have the lowest possible block cost reduction as a werewolf. It is really important to have low block cost, because you are going to have to heavy attack. The heavy attack animation seems quite long on a werewolf. And all of your skills are stamina as well. So you've got all stamina skills and you're going to be blocking. So you need to have the lowest possible stamina costing situation as you can get. Now the Crimson Oath set we're using because it's easy to activate. We've got armor, 1487 armor, we've got max health, we've got another line of armor, casting an ability, drinking a potion, or using a poison that applies a major or minor debuff to yourself or an ally, sends out a wave of energy that reduces the armor of nearby enemies within 12 meters by 3541 for 15 seconds, and this effect can occur once every 12 seconds and will only occur if the enemy is within range. Now the reason we need to have this is because we're not able to do any sort of we're not able to do minor breach. Our minor breach uptime is going to be super low with this particular build, but we are going to have Crusher, we're going to have major breach, we are going to have Crimson Oath, so we're still able to bring the pen numbers to be compatible within all sorts of groups, and it's not going to be too much of a detrimental impact because you're playing as a werewolf. This is not going to be good for trials, this build, but it is definitely usable in 4-man content. Okay, onto the skills. So we're using Brutal Pounce. Pounce on an enemy with Primal Fury, dealing bleed damage to them and other nearby enemies. This is our AoE taunt. So when we use this, it's going to AoE taunt everything, and it's going to pull everything if we're on our ant pull setup. This is fantastic. This is what we need. We're using it for the leap, the bleed, the AoE taunt. We've then got Deafening Roar. This is going to cause enemies to go off balance. It applies Major Breach and Minor Maim. It also gives us Major Savagery, increasing your weapon crit. Really useful skill, and it's much needed for those debuffs. It's also a fear skill, so when you're using you pull a gear set, when you do in the ad pulls, you'll need to use this to fear the enemies to keep them rooted in place. Next one is Howl of Despair. We're just using this for the feeding frenzy synergy, so we're able to provide a synergy for our group that grants Empower, which increases light and heavy attacks by 40%. So when you cast this, your group's going to get the feeding frenzy synergy, which is going to increase their damage. We're not using it for ourselves, we're using it purely for our group. Next we've got Hircine's Fortitude. This is absolutely insane. So this is a healing skill. It's going to heal us for 20k health. It increases our health and stamina recovery by 5% of the healing cause for 6 seconds. This scales off max health. If we've got full Magicka and full health, we want to be casting this skill. This is our only Magicka skill. We're going to use this to gain back stamina. So we're going to switch Magicka for stamina. And the heal from this, when I've used this in certain content, I've managed to get a 55k heal from this skill. It's absolutely one of the best heals in the game, if not the best. It is absolutely unbelievable. When you're buffed up and you use this skill, the heal is absolutely crazy. So yeah, I've managed to heal myself for 55k health by using this. So yeah, really good skill. You also gain Major Brutality while it's slotted, so that's really nice as well. Okay, last skill is Claws of Life. We're going to use this skill occasionally, so shred enemies in front of you with your Tainted Claws. So this is an AoE skill. It deals disease damage and an additional disease damage as a dot. And you're healed for 102% of the damage over time caused. So basically, you've got 2 heal skills. You inflict this onto like a group of enemies, and you're going to get constant ticks of healing for the damage that it causes, which is really nice. And then this is your burst hit. So you've got a heal over time and you've got a burst heal. Both very, very nice. And the morph of the werewolf transformation that we're going to use while we're in werewolf form is going to be the pack leader, because this gives us increased max stamina, 10% less damage, you summon 2 direwolves, you grant yourself and nearby allies minor courage, so this is the Yolnacrim buff, and you've got increased stamina recovery by having it select by 15% as well. So that is all the skills, guys. This is really going to provide quite a lot of buffs. We've got the minor courage buff, we've got Empower, Major Breach, minor Maim, we're going to have Crimson Oath. We've got loads of things going on, so loads and loads of buffs and debuffs. Really, really nice. For the champion points, it's up to you. I've definitely got Rationer, Liquid Efficiency, and Steed's Blessing. On the blue CP, you want points into everything that you don't have to slot. Everything that you don't have to slot. The slottables, though: Duelist Rebuff, Enduring Resolve, Unassailable, and Ironclad. Obviously more things that we don't have to slot there. And then when you get to really high CP levels, you can start throwing in these ones as well to get the increased chance of applying status effects. On the red CP, I've gone with extra max health, I've gone with slippery, I've gone with expert evasion. The reason why is I feel like these are better sustain tools than anything else, because if we have to break through a dodge roll as a werewolf, it's going to be super expensive, and we're already spending a hell of a lot of stamina by blocking with stamina and also having to deal with all of our skills being stamina based. So I've gone with two things that are expensive. Dodge roll and break free are very expensive. They're both going to be free for a short period of time. So we've got 21-second cooldown on this one, an auto break free and a free break free every 21 seconds, and a 30-second free dodge roll. So really important to make sure we bring down the cost of our combat abilities. We've got everything that you don't need to slot once again. So tumbling, defiance, all those kinds of things, increase sprint speed. Over here we have got bracing anchor. We are going to get a bit of a slowed movement speed because of it, but as a werewolf we do want to mitigate as much damage as we can, and obviously we're not going to be using a sword and shield. We're not going to have those passives, we're not going to have those benefits, so we are using bracing anchor to get a bit more damage mitigation while we're blocked, a bit more block mitigation, reducing our incoming damage while we're blocking. One of our tips for this would be to maintain werewolf form is quite simple when you're inside content. If you have to travel out of content, you will lose werewolf form. You have to try and be careful. So when you are in werewolf form, you will stay there for a good portion of time as long as you're staying active in a fight. As you can see underneath the magicka bar, that is werewolf meter. So that is the werewolf meter. Once that gets depleted, you will be removed from werewolf transformation. You can keep this up just by light attacking. As you can see, they're just doing a light attack every couple of seconds. Doing skills is going to maintain it. It's really easy to maintain. And you can also, you can consume corpses, you can eat corpses, devour a corpse to keep it up as well. But you shouldn't actually need to do that when you're inside a dungeon. As you're going through it, you're doing your leap, you're doing your light attacks, you're doing your hits on enemies, and it's going to maintain it automatically. So don't worry too much about coming out of werewolf, because it's going to be easy to stay in it once you've reached werewolf level 10. So just keep that in mind. Werewolf tank. I've done trials and dungeons as a werewolf tank. I would never take this build into a trial. I've only done that because it's been a bit of fun. I've been in groups that have allowed me to do so. But if you're trying to run a build and you're trying to do trials, this is not an acceptable way to do them. Even though they do offer some good utility, they do lack a lot of areas where they're not able to provide enough support. So this is mostly for dungeons, for a bit of fun. It's a fun build. It's not intended to be a serious method of playing as a tank. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the build. I hope you have fun with it. I'm going to have some fun with it. Make sure you check out the Tank Club content over on Twitch, where we're going to be doing some werewolf trials over the next couple of weeks, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.